Welcome back to the Schmozone podcast. This is episode number 94. I'm Dave Schmulenson, a.k.a. the Schmo. My co-host is
Helen Yee with Helen Yee Sports.
And today's guest is the number 3 ranked UFC flyweight. She's lucky, Lauren Murphy.
Luckiest.
The luckiest. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on, guys. This is cool. This is a cool setup you guys got.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And you can move these around too.
Okay, yeah. Is that
however you want.
Much better.
So I saw you're in town helping your good friend Roxanne Modafferi, right?
Yeah.
And for her last training camp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's been quite a ride for her. So I just came into town. Like, her and I train really well together. She's still learning and like still growing as a martial artist, but she has so much experience behind her. So she just has so many like moves she can do from so many different positions. It's pretty cool. But yeah, Rox and I get along really well, and she called me into town, which is always good for me because it's good for me to travel. Like, I like to cross train, and so I get to come out here. I got to train a little bit with like Mike Pyle. I got to pick some tips and tricks up from Frank Mir. Just like the level of the gym that she's training at Syndicate is a super high level gym. They have a lot of like good drills going on. So I always learn a lot when I cross train. And then it's nice to be of service to Roxanne. I can come and get services at the PI. So I'm getting ready to kick off my own camp. And so I can come and get testing or kind of get my camp set up through the PI with supplements and PT and just anything I might need to make me comfortable back at home. So.
And also former foe that you have a victory over too, Joanne Calderwood. She trains at Syndicate MMA as well. So you got to feel good walking through those doors, right?
Yeah, I feel good really walking through any doors. Like, I'm a confident person, and I think I can hang with anybody in the world. So, but yeah, I went to Syndicate, and JoJo makes a point not to talk to me or look at me.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really fucking care. I'm like, whatever. Like, I've literally never been mean to her. I've never said a cross word to her. Like, the most interaction I've had with her was on Twitter. Well, when we fought, obviously, that was the most interaction we had. But it's like she came at me on Twitter asking for a fight, and I gave her one. I gave her the fight she asked for. So you're welcome for that. If you don't like the decision, you can totally take it up with Sal D'Amato or fucking cry to whoever is on the commission. You know what I mean? But I did my job. She did her job. And I don't personally have anything against JoJo. I honestly am like, I don't know what her problem is, but I think I don't understand because like John Wood was very, very nice to me. Like when I've been in his gym, we're super polite to each other. The first time I came out to work with Roxanne, he really actually went out of his way to make sure that I felt comfortable, that I was, treated well in his place. And I don't know. I hope JoJo can let that bitterness go because I think it'll just hold her back. But that's none of my business. So. Whatever.
When did you find out that this was going to be Roxy's last fight? Did you go into training with her not expecting this and knowing? And when did you find out it was going to be her last tour?
I think she was kind of talking about it. I came out in November, and there was like her pre-camp, and she was kind of talking about it then. And I think when she finally like made the decision, I think it felt really good for her. She was like, yes, okay. And you can kind of let it all go. All the stuff she's ever wanted to do in a fight, I think she's going to let it go this time. So make sure you tune in. Check her out.
Big fight next weekend in Houston, UFC 271. But before we talk more about Houston, you also are headlining, or I think headlining. Is it premature for me to say that?
We're still trying to figure that out.
We're trying to figure out.
Let's all put it out into the universe. Yes. I'm headlining.
Against Miesha Tate, welcoming her to the flyweight division.
Yep, I'm going to give her the welcome she wants, the welcome she deserves.
Yeah, so what do you make it? Because I know you're a former Invicta bantamweight champion. Mm-hmm. So what do you make of her now moving down to the flyweight division and for the first time in, the weight cuts and everything like that?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes for her. She looks cut up at 135. But my guess is that she probably got close enough to weight in her last camp. Like, she probably got close enough to weight where she was like, I could probably do another 10, Like, she must have felt comfortable enough and lean enough at bantamweight to make the cut. So I don't know. Miesha's a little bit bigger than me though, and it's not like I have the easiest time getting to flyweight. I'm not a small flyweight. So we'll see how she does. I hope she has a good team around her.
And we saw an interview talking about, trying to get the champ, Valentina Shevchenko. I'm not going to say it's like something where she's already overlooking you, but you're her opponent, and she's already talking about fighting Valentina at 125, which I found pretty interesting too, because, look, people can't forget about you. Just like how people forgot about, I feel like, Calvin Kattar, and you saw what he just did in his last fight with Giga Chikadze because of what happened with Max Holloway. All of a sudden that you're going to forget about Calvin Kattar and how he was one of the top 145ers in the world. I hope the same situation doesn't happen to you, because you are one of the top 125ers in the world.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And Miesha asked for me, so I think, I think she feels like this is her quickest way into the top 5 and then her quickest shot at a title fight. And she's just wrong. I'm so sorry, Miesha, but you're wrong. It's not like she's not going to be able to get through me, first of all, especially not on her first cut to 125. But yeah, I'm going to answer a lot of questions for her. I'm not afraid of Miesha. I'm not afraid of her wrestling. I'm not afraid of her ground game. I'm certainly not afraid of her hands. I think I'm going to fuck her up.
So you've done the 135, as Helen mentioned, with Invicta and stuff like that. Now she's doing it. If you go back and you remember at that time of your career, like, what were some of the trepidations, or if you had any or reserves of going down, 10 pounds for that weight class? Did you have any different doubts or thoughts or anything like that when you first made that, I guess, drop down to the 125 class?
Not too much, because at 135, I fought at 145 at the beginning of my career and then dropped to 135 when I fought for Legacy. And then all through Invicta, I was at 135 in some of the UFC. But I would wake up on weigh-in day and, like, have a cup of coffee. Like, I had some fat on my hips. Like, I was eating really, really well through camp. I would have, like, 4 or 5 cheat days a week, Like, I was not the leanest person at 135. Like, I did not look like Miesha looks at 135. So I definitely had, like, some room to spare. And when the Ultimate Fighter came around and it was at 125, I was actually walking around at a super low weight, probably too low. Like, I probably wasn't healthy on the Ultimate Fighter. And it's taken me some time to kind of find that balance where this is how much weight I can cut at this weight class. This is how I feel good. This is my process. And it's taken some fights to figure that out. But now I feel like I have a pretty good system. I do have a really good nutritionist. I'm comfortable with my weight cutting process. So we'll see how it affects Miesha, because it will be her first one. It'll be a little bit different. And she didn't have the same amount of, like, fat and extra weight that I had at the 135 weight class.
And you're also a mother too, so you can relate in that well.
Yeah. Yeah. And Miesha and I actually like Miesha quite a bit. And speaking of the Ultimate Fighter, she really helped me through that time. It was a really hard time for me. And I would call her and I would be like, I don't understand this. I don't like this, and she really helped me kind of process, like, show business and being on TV and how to handle the fans. Like, she was really, really good to me during that time, and I'll never forget it. So even like not too long before the fight, we were exchanging some texts and phone calls. Like, after she fought, I just told her she looked great and to keep her head up. And then the UFC said that she asked for me, and I was actually super excited. I was like, yes, this is going to be a great fight. And of all the fights, you want to fight a former champ. You want to fight somebody like Miesha. So I almost felt honored that she asked for me. In a way, she's done me a great favor, because it's a big fight, and it's going to be a great name to add to my resume.
Big sign of respect.
I know, definitely. Do you still talk to her now, or have you recently spoken to her?
She reached out to me after the fight was booked, and she just told me, she was like, hey, I just want to let you know I really respect you. This is a great honor for me as well. And, I love you, but let's get down to it. And I told her, I'm like, we're friends now. We'll be friends after, but let's have a fucking fight, And
showbiz, yeah.
Exactly. Well, speaking of showbiz, did you see, I think she's filming Celebrity Big Brother?
Yeah, I don't know what that is, though. It's like...
Me neither. I was wondering if you've ever seen that show. I think it's really popular.
I guess.
But I've never seen it.
I never saw it either. I just know that you were telling me about it before you walked through the doors, that, hey, do you know Miesha Tate's doing that Celebrity Big Brother? And I didn't know what that was.
No, I guess you live in a house. I, like, looked up the synopsis of the show. I guess they all live in a house, and they have, like, contests. I don't know if you get voted on or off, or if you have to win the contest, or how it works, but she's definitely doing a reality show right now. So good for her.
and we brought up The Ultimate Fighter. Speaking of reality shows, I think it just got booked too that Julianna Pena and Amanda Nunes are going to be on this upcoming season of The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, I'm going to watch that for sure. Actually, it'll be the first season of Tough that I'll watch since my own season. So But I have a teammate going on there, Melissa Parker, and she's going to be so fun to watch. She's so tough, and she's just so scrappy. Her fights are so fun. I had the honor of cornering her in Houston for her last fight before she tried out for the show, and it was a blast. I was exhausted by the end of the night just from watching her. So she's going to be cool. And then just the list of names that they have on there, I don't know any of the men, but all the women, I was like, oh, cool. I can't wait to see that one. I can't wait to see that one. Yeah, so it's cool. I love the flyweight. I like women's fights in general, but I really like the flyweight division, and I like how it's growing and how it's shaping up. It's going to be a really good division.
Well, I'm curious to get your thoughts on what you thought of Julianna's win over Amanda Nunes.
You know, when they were walking out, I was like, oh my God, she could do it. I was like, Julianna's crazy enough. She could do it. And Amanda walked out, she just looked a little flat. Sometimes I watch people's walkouts and you can almost kind of tell what their mood is and where their headspace is, the way that they're walking out. Like when Rose fought Joanna Jędrzejczyk the first time, when Joanna was walking out, she looked super emotional. She was really tense. She was like pointing at Rose and doing this. And it was so over the top that I think she kind of blew her load a little bit, you know? And so I was watching for that when Julianna and Amanda were walking out. And I just noticed Amanda looked a little flat, and I was like, oh my God, Julianna might be able to fucking do it right now. And then she just started scrapping. Plus, Julianna has like the longest arms in the world. She has like super fucking long arms, which I think takes people by surprise. But they almost damn near hang down to her knees.
I mean, they came in handy too. Who else submits the champ?
That's true.
She got her to tap.
Yeah, without even having it sunk in. I honestly think Amanda got caught by surprise and panicked and gassed. I don't think she was like out of shape.
Well, do you think that Julianna beats her again in this rematch?
Or we got to watch The Ultimate Fighter to see, right?
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think it kind of depends. This is just how I see it. And I really like both those women. Like, I love Amanda a lot, and I have so much respect for Julianna's, like, level of confidence and the way that you can't tell her nothing. You know, I love that about her. I think it really depends, like, the emotional state of the two girls. Julianna's used to fighting in an emotional state. She fights emotionally. But I think Amanda needs to fight calmer because she's all muscle and power. You know what I mean? So you need to conserve some of that energy. Otherwise you gas, right? So if you're all just muscle and power and you fight with a lot of emotion and you get kind of stiff like she did, or if you panic a little bit, then for sure you're going to gas and you're not going to be thinking well. She just started throwing that overhand right over and over again, which to me is a sign of panic when you're just throwing the same combination over and over again. You're not being creative. You're not setting things up. You're not thinking about what might land. You're just kind of like a robot, you know? And so I saw that happen to Amanda in that fight. And I think if she can stay calm and not be caught by surprise and not panic, then I think she could beat Julianna.
Do you consider her win over Amanda a bigger upset than Holly Holm when she beat Ronda Rousey?
No. I think Holly Holm's upset was worldwide, huge. I mean, and not to say Julianna's wasn't, but I at least gave Julianna a chance in that fight. And honestly, when Holly fought Ronda, I was like, this will be over in a minute. No way. And when Holly started winning, me and Jocelyn Leibarger, I don't know if you guys remember her, but I was living in Arizona at the time. We were at a bar. The bar was packed. Jocelyn and I were holding each other, jumping up and down and screaming like little girls while we were watching that fight. The whole bar was going nuts. So when I watched Julianna submit Nunes, I mean, we were surprised. We're like, holy shit, that was fucking cool. Like, whoa, kind of went to bed like, God bless. But, man, when Holly head kicked Ronda, that was a head kick heard around the world. I don't know if there's ever going to be another moment like that.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But it's crazy because of this victory lap now. I think she's on the Ellen show now.
Yeah,
I mean,
saw
she's
that,
getting all these different types of promotions and stuff like that. Part of you, does that feel like that could have been you had you got the victory against Valentina?
I didn't want to say it, but yeah, I cried a little bit when Julianna won because she just showed so much heart and like she was so tough, and I knew how badly I broke in my own title fight, and it did hurt because I was like, what does Julianna have that I don't? And I actually really had to ask myself that, and the answer that I came up with was she was so confident, and it really changed things for me. I was like, I need to be more confident. If I had been confident in that fight, and granted, it is exceptionally hard to feel confident against Valentina Shevchenko. If you've got a brain in your head, it's going to be difficult to feel confident against somebody her caliber, but it's going to be required to beat her. And I did not have that night. So it just really, Julianna taught me that, like, I have to be mentally stronger. I have to give less shits about what people are saying. It was really hard to walk into that title fight. And it seemed like the whole world was like, what are you going to do? What do you bring to the table? What's different about you? And I didn't really have an answer at the time. You know, I was literally like, fuck, I don't know. I'm just going to go try real hard. You know? And that's definitely not the attitude that I should have had. But it really, you know, it took that fight, and it took Valentina kind of showing me that there's a whole nother level to fighting that I wasn't even aware of, that now I'm aware of, for me to realize that. And so, you know, you can practice your mindset the way you can practice anything else. And so that's what I've been doing.
But with Miesha kind of already saying, you know, she's targeting Valentina. So for you, if you get the result you're looking for against Miesha, where do you think that will take you then?
I think it puts me in a good spot for sure, but I would definitely need to have, in my mind, I think 3 good performances with maybe even finishes over people in the top 10 for me, myself, to feel confident to get in there to fight the champ again. Not just to convince the fans, not just to convince Dana, which of course, like, I would like to do, but I would have to prove to myself, like, I need some proof to rely on when I go and fight the champ that I'm a bad motherfucker. And I just felt like I couldn't quite get there in the last fight. It was like, well, a lot of these wins are by decision, and all these fights have been kind of like just scraping through. And I did. I got a title shot based off a lot of decisions in the top 10. I'm a badass motherfucker. I'm beating people in the top 10, but I need to start finishing people in the top 10. And I think I could do that by building my mindset. I don't think there's anything wrong with me physically. I don't think there's anything wrong with my technique. I don't think there's anything wrong with me athletically. I think that really it's going to be up here for me as an athlete that needs to change for me to have better performances.
Was that what you noticed the most going into that fight against Valentina compared to your others, mainly just mentally?
So physically, I was definitely not at 100%. So I don't want to get into a ton of details about it, but I will say that it seemed like in that camp, nothing went right. Like, I could not get it together in that camp. There was a lot of injuries and sicknesses and drama and just a lot of things that were kind of outside my control. And it all kind of accumulated. Like, fight week, my coach had COVID. So we got
Bob?
No, not Bob, Alex.
Oh, no.
But I'm undefeated with Alex in my corner. I feel like he's my guy. And we all got to Vegas, and the UFC was like, he's got COVID, he can't corner you. And I was really hoping that they'd be like, okay, fight's off, like, corner has COVID, we can't do it, safety protocols. But they were just like, did you sit next to him on the plane? I was like, no. And they were like, okay, well, good, he's got to leave. And then they didn't even really offer, like, to put the fight off. But looking back, what would have happened? If I hadn't fought, Cynthia Cavillo would have stepped into the title fight. Like, she was kind of waiting for backup, just hoping that something would happen to me. She would have fought for the title. She would forever go down in UFC history as a UFC title contender. I would have had to fight another contendership fight, which I would probably be getting ready for right now. And then it's totally up in the air. You know, the fight game is so crazy. It's like I might have never made my way back to the title. So we made a decision to go ahead, like, all these hardships that have led up to this moment. Either you're going to fucking fight and become the champion despite the hardships, or you're going to let the hardships bog you down, be on your mind, and you're not going to be the champion. That was my choice. That was at least how my mind thought about it. Like, you're either going to overcome it and fucking do it and be the champ, or you're going to go in there and fight. You're not going to overcome it, and you're not going to leave the champ. But either way, you're going to go in there and you're going to fucking fight. And unfortunately, I just was not strong enough, I think physically or mentally, that night to be the champ. But it did show me a lot of ways that I can improve. So,
but anything is possible in the world, and everybody's beatable.
That's
and
true.
Julianna Pena certainly is the most recent example to show that too.
Yeah.
What do you think it's going to take to beat a beatable Valentina Shevchenko after getting in the cage with her?
So I think it would really help, like, maybe if, like, when she was walking out, if she tripped on a cord and fell and broke her neck. I'm just kidding.
Tony Ferguson did that, but he ripped up his knee.
No. Well, first of all, just speaking from my own, like, worldview, I think it's going to take somebody with a lot of confidence. Obviously, you have to be confident, first of all, to be a fighter, but I can't think of a single champ that's not incredibly confident in themselves, right? And so I know that for me, that's what I was missing. It's gonna have to be somebody that has quite a bit of experience, or that doesn't give a shit that they don't have experience. So kind of take your pick. But I think somebody with a lot of experience that can see what's happening in there and that feels comfortable going wherever the fight's going to go with Valentina, because she is incredibly well-rounded. So I think it's going to take somebody that's also well-rounded and somebody that's very confident.
Do you consider her the number one pound-for-pound female right now?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy that, when I was going to say this earlier too, that just like one loss or one scenario changes everything, the entire complexity of everything like that too, because for the longest time too, people were talking about the trilogy fight then with Amanda Nunes and Valentina. They were talking about Kayla Harrison, who was her teammate, and now she's no longer a part of American Top Team. That is Amanda Nunes leaving that gym after that loss, and now you have those two in the Ultimate Fighter. Maybe there's an opportunity where you could have been the Ultimate Fighter with Valentina for the rematch had you got the victory too. And then at 145 too, Max Holloway had to pull out of the trilogy with Alex Volkanovski, and then you have Korean Zombie just coming off that one win against Dan Ige, getting the opportunity. It's crazy how the fight game works.
You never know.
You never know. And that's one thing I'll always remember in my heart from the Ultimate Fighter is anything could happen. And you can't ever be like, oh, this will never happen. It'll never be this. This will never go like, because literally in fighting, fucking anything. Anything could happen. Like Cynthia Cavillo, I mean, her odds of becoming a UFC title contender are nil, but they were very, very close that week that we were on the same fight card. You know what I mean? Like, she could have walked into a title fight, and that same opportunity could present itself to me, you know? So, yeah, I'm holding out hope that one day I'll be able to redeem myself and have a better performance against the champion.
Wait, because you said that again. How close you think was it for Cynthia Cavillo to have stepped in and have that fight? Like, because it sounds like it's something that...
I was dragging my feet to that title fight. If there had been like one little reason to be like out, I would have been out. Like, really, like I did not want to fight without my coach. Because imagine this. I'm 9-0 with that guy in my corner. He took me through Legacy. He took me to the Invicta Championship. He took me all the way to the UFC Championship. I've never suffered a loss with Alex Cisne in my corner. I don't know if that guy just has some kind of magic or what, but when you know, we had all these things happen in camp all the way up, and I'm like, let it go, let it go, let it go. And then we get all the way up to the fight, and then my coach can't be there. And honestly, it broke my heart because I was like, how do I win without you? And if I do win, how could I win without you? Like, I would want you to be there for that moment. What would I do if I won the belt and the fucking confetti's coming down and everybody's cheering and the lights are going and then fucking Alex is next door at the Holiday Inn or wherever they made him quarantine? Like, that thought even broke my heart. So it was a tough thing to deal with, you know, on top of all this other shit that was kind of going on. And honestly, I just wasn't like emotionally, mentally, I think, solid enough or confident enough to go in there and overcome all that stuff. And then without my coach, fight the greatest female fighter that the UFC has known, right? So I think it's possible to be that strong. I think it's possible for me to get there mentally and emotionally. I know that there's other fighters that are like, whatever, I don't care. I'll fucking fight without my coach. Or what, you know, they'll fight with their girlfriend in their corner, like whatever,
Mike
you know.
Perry.
I know, yeah. So there's guys that can perform and they really fucking don't care. But for a championship title fight, you know, I think it's important. But it affected me, but it also taught me a lot. And so it's taken some time. It's taken a couple months, but I'm starting to see like the positives that I can take out of it.
No, it makes complete sense. I was just listening to Julianna Pena on Joe Rogan's podcast and saying how she couldn't have done it without the coaches believing in her and her corner and the importance of that, and how she was just giving them, deferring to them for all the credit in the world for her to be in the position today to be in that title shot. So, not title shot, but to be the champion. So,
yeah.
So everything you're saying goes aligned with what I just heard her saying, and she's the champ.
Yeah, you have to have a great team around you, and it's important to me. I've always been a very like coach oriented person. So if my coach tells me to do something, I do it. When my coach tells me something, I believe it. Like I'm a very coach oriented person, but that experience with Valentina really taught me that maybe I almost rely on my team a little too much. I need to be a little more confident in Lauren Murphy. I need to be, I don't always need to be like, well, what do you think about that? Like, am I doing this right? What if I do it like this? Is this better? What do you think of this? Sometimes I just need to be like, this is the way I'm fucking doing it, and this is right because I'm doing it. So, yeah, and just practicing having like a more confident attitude has really started to serve me well.
Well, May 14th, another huge moment and huge fight for you, though.
Yeah.
Against a former champ.
Yeah. I'm blessed. I'm telling you, I'm blessed to get that fight. Like, it's awesome. A lot of girls in the division would love to have that fight.
And speaking of your division, 125, I think, is, especially where you're at, it's a loaded division. There's a lot of young talent coming in there. And Roxy, who you've been preparing for, she's fighting in Casey O'Neill, undefeated fighter, young, a lot of confidence, BJJ accolades and stuff like that. I'm curious, when you're game planning for her and helping her game plan, like, what stands out to you about her success so far as young and being an undefeated prospect?
I actually didn't really watch any of Casey O'Neill's fights. When I went to the gym, I asked Roxy's coaches, like, is there anything you want me to do? Is there anything you want me to do specifically? And they did have, like, a couple shots that they thought the girl might shoot on Roxy. They had a couple positions that they wanted to try to work a little bit more. Roxanne had some sequences that she was practicing for the fight. But mostly, like, she goes with different partners, so she's getting all different looks. And as long as we're all about the same size, I think it's good. Like, Roxanne knows how to fight. So I've been telling her, like, every day, I'm like, how long have you been in the UFC? She's like, I don't know, like 6 years. I'm like, how long have you been in the top 10 in the UFC? She's like 4 years. I'm like, how many years were you in the top 5? How many girls in the top 10 have you fought? How many major belts for females have you fought for in your MMA career? All of them, by the way. Like, how many years have you been grappling? Like, how good of shape are you in right now? You're literally wearing out your sparring partners. So, like I said, confidence is a big thing, and Roxanne has a lot to feel confident about going into that fight.
And I love that she always stays true to herself. And I think she just got engaged.
Yes.
So cute.
Oh, my God. So I'm staying at her house, and Roxanne and her boyfriend are her fiance. They're so hysterical. Like, Roxanne is literally the heart eye emoji when she looks at Chris. Like, hearts are just coming out of her eyes. She loves him. Like, it's like watching a cartoon. And Chris is so nice to her. He, like, I don't know. He cracks her up. He's always holding her hand. He rubs her back. He's, like, so sweet to her. So I just love that because, it's Roxanne. And, like, she found her nerd. She found her guy, and they are crazy about each other. I've never seen them say a cross word to one another.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
She deserves that.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, I know. And so I'm like, well, they're going to get married, I think this fall. And I'm like, how the hell are you going to fit everybody into the wedding? Like, she has to invite all of us, clearly, everybody from the gym, everybody from the PI, half the people from, like, Extreme. Like, do you know what I mean? She's going to have people from all over the world trying to come to this wedding. So I hope they got a big-ass venue.
Everybody loves Roxanne.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Someone next weekend too. Houston, your home city, your new adopted home city.
Yeah.
Derrick Lewis is returning.
Yeah.
Now,
someone else everyone loves.
Someone else everyone loves too. I mean, this fan favorite fight: Tai Tuivasa, and you got Derrick Lewis. Zero shortage of personality there.
Yeah.
You said it too. Derrick knocks out, and Derrick, by the way. The record, UFC history, MMA history, the most knockouts. Everyone talks about Francis Ngannou's scariest man, scariest puncher. It's Derrick Lewis.
It's Derrick. Yeah, he's the baddest blue belt in the world for sure.
But what's he got to drink out of if he gets to that knockout?
He has no choice. Like, if he's trying to have the best post-fight interview and it's going to be better than Tai Tuivasa's, then he's going to have to drink a beer out of his cup. You have to do a cuppy, Derrick, and I'm sorry, but you have backed yourself into this corner, and there's no way out of it. You have to drink a fucking beer out of your cup. So knock this dude out and then drink a beer out of your cup.
and not a hard seltzer, a real beer.
Yeah, a real beer. But I think with Derrick's cup, he's probably only going to like a couple sips in. You know what I'm saying?
Fuck it. Throw in some moonshine.
Man, but how is he looking, though?
He looks awesome. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people in this fight. Like, he is the knockout king. He's the knockout king, and he's actually dangerous everywhere. So Derrick's really going to shock the world in this fight. I think his comeback is going to be amazing, and he's going to set himself up for another run at the title.
How much pressure do you think he feels by fighting in Houston, though? Because I feel like all these Houston cards, he has to worry about so many tickets. Let's be real. He's the draw. Everybody from that town wants to see Derrick Lewis. We've been around it. We've seen it, too. Yeah. And obviously he probably feels like shit by how he performed for that interim title fight with Cyril Gane. Makes up for it in his last fight and gets the knockout record and stuff like that. How much do you feel like he wants to redeem himself in front of this hometown crowd in be Derrick Lewis that everyone in that city knows who he is, you know?
Oh, 100%. But like when I saw Derrick before the title fight, he looked so stressed. He was like, it looked like he literally had a weight on his back, and he was like just so drawn in. He was like quiet. He didn't like, never played around. He was just so stressed, and he talked a lot about how much pressure he felt. He talked about it in his interviews. He talked about it at the gym, and we could tell almost just from like the way he was carrying himself. We were like, fuck, he's really like, the pressure's really getting to him. And then I could understand that when I had my own title fight. I was like, the pressure is incredible. And then for him to do it in front of his hometown, which, you know, Houstonians love Houston. Like, Houstonians are all about H-Town, which makes sense because it's an awesome city. But after the title fight, I saw Derrick, and he was getting ready for his last fight, and he looked like just a free man. He was so light and happy. He was joking around, and he was talking about it. He was like, I feel so much pressure off of me. And I think after you go, I mean, that's his second time challenging for the title, but I think after you feel that immense amount of pressure where you're challenging for the title in front of your hometown, I think everything after that feels like, whew, a big weight off, you know? And Derrick's also the kind of athlete where he wants to improve. And so I haven't talked to him about this, but I hope that he takes this opportunity to just redeem himself in his own heart. I don't think anybody in Houston ever holds anything against Derrick. Like we said, Houston loves Derrick Lewis, but this is his opportunity to go out and get a sweet knockout in front of his hometown crowd, get his hand raised, and just redeem himself in his own mind.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Blue Mon, some of the best hair products on the market. I absolutely love it. This right here is their discovery kit, all different types of styles for your different hairs. I personally love using their fist sample. Great stuff. It holds the hair super well. It doesn't get flaky as well, so it's easy to clean. You could even fall asleep in it if you do fall asleep with your hair product in your hair. Don't always recommend that, but this stuff doesn't smell bad, doesn't get too greasy. Fantastic hold. Very good stuff. They also have their cloud control. Very good. Check it out. BlueMon.com/Schmo. Get 10% off. You will not be disappointed.
Like, watching him train is cool because he really gets after it. And then I see how much he lets it go in his fights. And that's really, like, kind of what's more inspirational to me. I mean, it's cool to know Derrick and joke around with him. And he's Derrick Lewis. It's all famous. But really, like watching his work ethic and then watching him apply it in fights is super inspirational, because there's a lot of fighters that can't. They'll have a great camp or whatever, and they freeze up when they fight. And especially at heavyweight, a lot of heavyweights are not in the kind of shape that Derrick is in. A lot of heavyweights are not the athletes that Derrick is, and a lot of heavyweights don't work as hard as he does, and so they gas, or they don't throw flying knees for sure. Derrick throws a lot of kicks.
He loves it.
Yeah, flying knees, foot sweeps. He's a very athletic, large man. So it's kind of cool for me to see that, how he lets it go in his fights.
And even in the past year, when we've been to Main Street, boxing and Muay Thai, I saw in that downstairs area where they used to have all the weights, the blue mats and everything, and you could just tell the jiu-jitsu is going on there. Derrick has been working hard and working in all areas of his game as a martial artist, so you could just see the evolution.
Yeah, he and Joe get along really well, and Joe started a gi program at Main Street, so the fighters are like putting on their kimonos now, and they're getting in their pajamas, and they're going and roll around in their pajamas a little bit. I mean, still a lot of the classes are no gi because that obviously applies more to MMA, but I'm loving it. Hopefully we'll get some more black belts out of Main Street anytime.
Hey, I was sold when he got out of that Alexei Oleinik choke right there, and he was able to survive and advance, and obviously then he finished the fight too, but that told me everything I need to know about Derrick Lewis right there. Doesn't matter the positioning, doesn't matter how difficult or unfamiliar it is. He's been working on the game that people didn't think he'd had.
Yeah, no, exactly. That dude's a fighter through and through, just naturally a very good fighter, but he takes instruction well, and I think he and Joe really speak the same language. Just Joe's not teaching him to berimbolo or, I mean, I don't want to give away too much, but Joe's not teaching him crazy leg locks or fucking inverted anything. He's teaching him how to keep heavy pressure, how to get up when he needs to, how to wrestle well, how to, I don't know, not get taken down on the cage, all that kind of shit.
And shout out to crew Bob Perez as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Of Main Street Boxing.
Yeah, they've been together for a long time, Bob and Derrick. So
I know.
If anything, they should have like a cop buddy show.
Hey, they should. Putting it out there in the universe.
Dude, I wanted to do like a thing with Derrick where we like roll around and go to like different food spots, like Southern food and taco stands.
You should.
And then like, cause it'd just be so funny. And Derrick's so hilarious. He'd be like, "No, that's trash." But I'll eat just about anything. So I think we can have a lot of fun with it,
I think you guys should.
You're in the perfect city for that as well.
Oh my God, yeah, we are. Okay, well, when you guys come, like, let's plan something. We'll all go out. Because I know he did like the hot wings thing, right?
Yeah, that was so funny.
Oh my God, that was hilarious. Just watching all the beads of sweat just drip down his face. He couldn't handle it. And then just taking the milk and just chugging it.
Yeah.
That's so great. That was fantastic too. Who else comes out? Kevin Holland. Do you see him coming down to Main Street too? I know he hits mitts with Bob.
Yeah, every once in a while, like we've crossed paths. He's hilarious. So
I can imagine him and Derrick too have some fun banter.
Can you imagine if they were sparring?
Oh my God.
I bet Kevin Holland would do it. So these are all ideas for you guys for like your podcast. We could YouTube it and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, for sure. I love that. Those two are just, the jokes don't stop.
Dude, can you imagine if Kevin Holland and Nick Diaz fought? It would be like 15 minutes of just talking and posturing and like slapping each other and.
Well, now it's Sean Strickland and Kevin Holland jawing back and forth.
Oh, yeah? Oh, that would be a good fight. That'd be a good fight.
They apparently had some sort of run-in at the PI and stuff like that, and there's jawing back and forth. But Sean Strickland Kevin's got no filter, but Sean Strickland truly has no
Zero filter. Yeah, so I've been at the PI all week, and Sean Strickland is like in the lobby almost every day, like holding court. He's like eating lunch and like having a sermon almost. He's just like telling stories and talking to people and giving his opinion about stuff. And then like he's making people laugh and he's got opinions, and then he packs up his lunch and he fucking leaves. Like I'm just like, we're here for the Sean Strickland show, really. Like
what kind of stories?
Some of them I cannot repeat. Like some of them will like get your podcast taken off the air.
100%, but he doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't give a shit. Yeah, he doesn't care who's in the lobby. He doesn't care who's listening to him. He's going to say what he's going to say, and he's going to laugh at himself, and if you don't think he's fucking funny, fuck you. He's going to leave. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't care. And so, yeah, he talks a lot about training, how his sparring matches have gone, who he sparred with. Somebody will walk into the PI, and he'll like tell a story about that guy, and yeah.
And I love how freaking candid he is too, because he knows that he couldn't get away with this when he wasn't winning, when he wasn't successful. Now he's main event Sean Strickland, and he can say whatever the hell he wants, and there's no repercussions for it. That is the beauty too with the UFC, is they're not going to filter somebody. You know, I remember when Tyron Woodley was fighting Colby Covington, they didn't censor one side and not the other side, and you have two contrasting sides. That I do appreciate the open forum with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of it's amazing how varied personalities fighters can have, because you think of a fighter and you're like, oh, they're going to be aggressive and arrogant and like a tough guy, and the like variability of personalities that you can meet in one day just at the PI, it's nuts. It's crazy.
When you first interviewed Sean, what did he say to you? He didn't like you on camera? Or the Schmo, right?
He has this whole thing, the whole I love interviewing him.
But now he loves you.
Yeah. Because he's like, you know, you remind me of this guy in high school that used to change his voice all the time and used to get with all the chicks. I used to want to fucking murder this person or whatever. And you know what, Schmo? I like you now, but I used to say fuck you to you, but he was just going off, and I'm just standing there and in character, and I
wasn't with him. That was like one of the few times I didn't go with him. So I'm watching this interview like, oh my gosh.
And I absolutely loved every second of it, because it was just so perfect for the character, so self-deprecating. He's the perfect human for it. And now him and I message all the time back and forth. Yeah. Hey, send me this clip. What do you think of that? And Sean Strickland, I love you, man.
That's awesome. Sean Strickland, I can see there. That. Where he would be like, I didn't fucking like you. I could totally see. I'm going to have to go back and watch it, because I could see that. You
also spent time, too, in Arizona at the MMA lab and stuff like that. You know, they have a really good gym as well. I know Kyler Phillips is up on the Houston card, too, I believe.
Oh, he is? Okay, yeah. I haven't seen the whole card, but...
Jared Cannonier.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely knew about that one. That's going to be a sick fight.
I think he was the co-main until they put Derrick on there.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But that's a huge fight. Him and Brunson, winner of that likely is going to get the title shot.
Yeah, he's going to beat Brunson. Derrick's going to knock out Brunson. I mean... I don't have anything against Brunson. I don't know him, but like I've known Jared a long time, and I just can't see that fight going any other way. I think Jared's going to knock out Brunson and then fight for the title, and kind of depending on who the champion is at that time. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but that's my prediction for that fight. So there you go, folks.
And I can't believe that Jared at one point was fighting at heavyweight. He's just someone who's a heavyweight that just worked his way down to middleweight.
Yeah, we didn't know how to cut weight in Alaska, I guess. We all fought heavier than we should have. But
you go back to Alaska days with him, or did you meet? Oh, so
we were like white belts together. So we were on the same MMA team. There's some really old pictures out there floating around of me, Jared Cannonier, a couple other really tough guys, another guy named Andy Enns, who also made it to the UFC, but he didn't win any of his fights. But we were at a Gracie Baja, like in Anchorage, Alaska, and just had a really great coach at the time. His name was Pat Applegate, and he was a phenomenal coach, really great. And all of us we would show up for 3 hours a night. We would do our kickboxing, our jiu-jitsu, and then our MMA. We'd all be exhausted, but we were like in our late 20s, early 30s, and just loved it. And we were all fighting. And so Jared and I fought on a bunch of the same cards in Alaska, and we kind of came up together. And so Joe and I moved out of Alaska and eventually ended up at the MMA lab through a series of events. And we called the Cannoniers, and we were like, you guys got to come down here. Like, if Jared really wants to be successful, if he's going to make it in the UFC, y'all should come down here. And so the Cannoniers came to Arizona. They actually lived in our house for about 4 months, something like that, when Jared made his UFC debut on a New Year's card in Vegas. And he debuted against Sean Jordan, I think. So that one didn't go his way, but he did settle in at the lab, really liked the team. I think he and Benson Henderson trained together a lot. Yeah. And so that's obviously an awesome training partner. Plus they got like James Nakashima and David Mashad and just probably a bunch of other tough people I don't even know of anymore because I haven't been there in a few years. But obviously Jared's career's taken off, and good for him. That's awesome.
But it's cool to see, like you said, you guys have known each other and stuff from all the way since Alaska days, and then now being the top UFC fighters. That's so cool.
No, it's awesome. I honestly think Jared has the best chance of anybody I know of becoming the next champ.
And Izzy's talked about it too. And I'm assuming, are you going to pick Izzy to beat Robert Whittaker, or do you think Robert Whittaker gets the upset?
I'm like such a fangirl for Robert Whittaker. Like, I literally clap my hand. I turn into the heart eyes emoji. Like,
what does Joe say?
Joe does too. Oh. Joe's like, I know, he's really handsome. Awesome. So I think I will just go with Whittaker just on principle. So we'll see how that shakes up the division. But Jared's got a chance against anybody. I mean, he hung in there with Whittaker for 3 rounds. It was a great fight. And Jared had a broken arm the whole time.
I remember in the first round, he blocked a kick and it broke his arm. And I remember those two just meeting after the fight, having a beer together. And that was such a special moment. I watched it. But I bring that up too because Izzy, he's acknowledged over time that he foresees himself defending and fighting Jared Cannonier. He's had his eyes on Jared as a candidate the whole time. But what does make this fight so intriguing too is Blonde Brunson has not lost. And it's no secret he's got the wrestling background. But Jared's a big guy, and I know he does have wrestling defense too. And he fucking hits hard, especially coming from a former heavyweight too. It is going to be an awesome fight.
Yeah, Brunson gets hit a lot, though.
He does.
And Jared's footwork is pretty insane for a big guy. Like, he really moves his feet, and he's super fast. So I would love to cheer for Brunson, but I mean, not really, though. Like, I just think Jared's going to win, and I don't really see it going any other way. But we'll see, because Blonde Brunson is a force to be reckoned with. It'll be a really good, like, a good win for Jared, you know. But like I said, like, Jared's got that confidence factor. Like, he's got that confidence factor where he can go in and be the champ. And I've met some incredible athletes over my career. I've been honored to meet the best athletes in the world. Like, Benson Henderson is probably one of the best athletes I've ever been in the same room as. A couple other UFC champs. I've met John Jones. Jared Cannonier is just as special as any of those champions. His attitude, his work ethic, his belief in himself, his ability to pick up like not just moves, but fighting concepts like so quickly where you could tell him something and he has implemented it into his game the next week is something that he does. And not everybody can do that. For me, it takes months, sometimes years before I'm like really implementing something into my game where I have to practice it a lot. Jared just has this natural ability to soak things up like a sponge. So that's my little soapbox. But I think Jared Cannonier is a special athlete.
It's going to be a great pay-per-view next weekend.
I'm pumped. You know what? I'm just so grateful to be a UFC athlete. I'm pumped because I get to go sit like near the front on the floor. I'm going to be, treated like really well when I go to the UFC, and these days don't last forever. And so it means a lot to me to be able to come out here and use the PI. It means a lot to me that I can ask the UFC for tickets to the biggest pay-per-views, get really good seats, and go like enjoy watching the best athletes in the world do the hardest sport in the world. Like, to me, this is, I know that these days don't last forever, so I really, really try to like soak it up and enjoy it and be present for all of it.
Wish more fighters had the same mindset as you too, because that's such a good way to look at it too.
Yeah, so I mean, someday I'm going to be buying tickets to get back into that arena, and I'm going to be sitting up in the stands, and I'm going to be longing for the days that I could walk into the octagon. So, yeah.
But in the future, would you ever consider being a commentator?
Sure, a commentator. Honestly, I would work for the UFC in almost any capacity. Just my experience, like with UFC staff, is that they are so good to the fighters. They're like, I don't know how it is like with other organizations, but the UFC, you show up for fight week and you could literally just be standing somewhere and be like, fuck, I really wish I had a bottle of water. And somebody will appear and they'll be like, here you go. And I don't know if other organizations are like that, but the UFC takes such good care of its athletes. I wouldn't hate working for the UFC and trying to stay in that circle somehow, working with the athletes in any capacity. I'll carry cords behind the cameraman. I'll clean the PI, like whatever it is, but I'd like to stay in the fight world.
Yeah, I just think, and we were just talking about this too. We had Brandon Moreno on last week too, because obviously the big hot topic that everyone talks about is fighters get paid little and all this type of stuff. And there's always multiple sides to the story. And sure, everyone wants to get paid more, but there are a lot of things that the UFC does behind the scenes to accommodate for fighters that other organizations don't do. And I feel like that doesn't get highlighted enough.
Oh, for sure. Like, people always bitch about healthcare, but the UFC has always taken really good care of me. Even if you get injured in camp, I mean, they have like a plan for that. If you get injured in a fight, they obviously have a plan for that. I really love being a UFC athlete. There's a lot of perks that don't get talked about enough. I mean, people bitch about fighter pay, but I'm not the highest paid athlete. I'm a well-paid athlete. I'm a well-paid flyweight. But I'm also smart with my money. So there's certain things that I think fighters don't do enough of. Like, I have an LLC. It saves me a bunch of money in taxes. If you are a fighter, go get an LLC set up. Even if you're not making money right now, like someday you hopefully will be, and you want to have that LLC in place when you do start making money. So if you're a new fighter, go get an LLC. Like, I don't think it costs hardly fucking anything. You definitely want to get like a financial advisor. You want to invest your money and not fucking blow it, like, for sure, because like I said, these days do not last forever. And the odds of having permanent income from fighting are like slim to none, right? So you're going to make all this money and like hopefully like 10, 15 years on the outside is like maybe how long you could really be a fighter, 10 years probably at the top level. And if you're not being smart with your money in that time, that money's going to go away and you're going to have a lot of catching up to do. But I think it's like that in most pro sports. I could be wrong because I don't play any other sports, but the top earners are the stars. Everybody else is kind of like makes good money, but they're kind of middle of the road. And then they do have some like lower level tier athletes that probably don't make nearly as much as Kobe Bryant or LeBron or whatever.
Right. The average shelf life for an NFL player is like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And then you're only as good as your availability, kind of like fighting too. But if you're injured, you're not on the field, you're not going to get that next contract. Nothing's guaranteed. And then you're just fighting for an opportunity to fight on the practice squad and stuff like that. For a fighter, obviously you want to be at the elite. You want to be at the UFC. But there's all these other organizations now and all these other opportunities for you to find a way and make in. I think the longevity and the health, that situation is a lot more difficult for a fighter as an independent contractor too, especially if you had pre-existing issues, especially if it comes to a knee and things that are really, really difficult that kind of hamper your movement over time. But, there's a lot of different perks and there's a lot of different ups and downs, ebbs and flows, but that's just that way in all sports.
Yeah, I was watching I saw something on ESPN. I think it was a Bellator athlete who got like the fastest submission in history. I don't even know if it was Bellator history, but like the fight started, he rolled for a heel hook. and he got a super fast submission. He was really pumped. And my first thought was like, too bad you don't get 50 G's for that. Like, you're going to make your belly, like, I've never heard of that guy. So unless he's like a top earner in Bellator, which I don't think he is, I was like, cool, you're going to get your win bonus. But like, if that had been in the UFC, you'd be walking out with maybe like $100,000 right now, you know?
Maybe it is something where, especially in the social media era that we're in, where it's like people like to highlight the negatives more than positives.
People love to bitch, I know. And I'm not exempt from that, but just for me, like, my dream was to be a UFC athlete. And I know people hate this because it's like, yeah, as long as everybody keeps talking like that, the UFC will never pay us more. Like, I'm not going to fight for free. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that my dream was to be a UFC athlete. And my experience in other organizations was they don't pay nearly as much as the UFC does. So, yeah, I'm happy with my contract, and I'm happy with my spot in the division. And, yeah, I'm good.
And that's all that matters.
Yeah, for
as long as you're happy.
Yeah.
As long as you're happy and you're able to also to parlay it to other ventures and things that you're happy doing as well. And it seems like, you know, you're able to do that.
And take good care of your dogs, Penny and Marsh.
Yeah, no kidding. I know they're way more popular on my Instagram than I am. But they're good dogs. So I do want to, like, when I'm done fighting, I'd like to kind of get into real estate. Like, we love to do like home construction. Like, Joe and I bought our house. It was a fixer-upper. We like fixed the whole thing up, like laid the floors, put in countertops. Like, anyway, we like doing stuff like that. And I would love to like be able to buy a house and flip it, and buy a house and flip it, or buy a house and rent it out, something like that, and just start like making some, you know, choices to have some permanent income. But we like doing, like, I think it was on Embedded when we were like working on the gym and putting up the wall mats and stuff. Yeah, we love doing shit like that. So I think when I'm done fighting, we definitely have like a future doing something like that. Like, we can stay busy, and then for sure we're going to be gym owners. Like, Joe's meant to be a coach 100%. So like, we're already going that direction where we're going to have our own gym that will be like our, like, that's our next step in life. I think, like, our dream. Joe's meant to be a coach. So yeah, being in the UFC and like having the experiences that not only I've had, but that like Joe has been able to have, like cornering me and cornering Derrick, and he gets to meet other really high level coaches and learn from them and just kind of be in the scene. It's all these experiences are serving us well, so that like a decade from now, Joe's going to be a really high level coach with a whole new, like, fighters are going to be at a whole new level. They're going to, like, 10 years from now, girls are going to be fighting and they're going to be like, Lauren Murphy was like an amateur. You know, I mean, I'm at the top right now, but the sport just evolves so fast. So we're going to own a gym, and we're going to have a lot of evolved fighters in there, and hopefully own a few houses and flip those. And that's kind of what we want to do. And rescue dogs. That would be nice. We'll have one house for rescuing dogs.
And you're set. And that sweat equity and the proof in the pudding, it's already there. It's already existent. You guys have the foundation, the blueprint, and everything you're saying is all going to come to life.
Yeah,
it already is.
I don't see why not. Like, our little corner of the world could be, you know, really comfortable. And Joe has a way of really improving everything around him. He improves people's lives that are around him. He improves, like, the spaces that he's working in around him. Like, he really has a magic touch to help people improve not just their fight game, but like their lives in general. And he brings a lot of happiness to a place. So I think we really could have a good thing going on.
That's great.
Speak it into existence.
Yeah. I know. So Joe got kind of hammered on by DC in the title fight, right? DC was like pretty hard on him, I think, on Joe's coaching. Yeah.
I remember.
That was hard for us. Well, it was kind of hard for us. Like, it was a little hard for Joe, but I was kind of like, whatever, like, fuck that guy, you know? But it was true. Like, we didn't have my head coach there. So Joe was kind of thrown into this spot where he's coaching, you know, against Valentina Shevchenko. Alex, my head coach, he wasn't there. Alex is really a striker. Alex has been striking his whole life. So that was like not our ace in the hole, but he was the guy that was going to see what Valentina was doing, you know, kind of direct me around, play the video game. Like, that was going to be Alex. And Joe got kind of thrown into that spot. Didn't really have a choice, but that's not Joe's, like, striking isn't Joe's forte. And it just got to be a real mess that night. I wish DC had not been so hard on Joe, because it's different cornering your wife.
I was just about to say that too, because it's two different responsibilities that he has to be thrown into in balance in the moment. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not the typical scenario too. And especially on the biggest stage, the biggest fight of your life, like, he's definitely probably, I mean, unless he was at the fighter meetings, right? Those pre-fighter meetings. So was he aware of the situation?
Who? Oh,
DC.
DC. We didn't talk about it. I didn't want anybody to know that my coach was out. So I guess I could have said something at the fighter meeting, but you know how like fight week, you're just trying to stay positive. You're like, it's all going to be good. I don't need anybody. I don't need anything. I feel great. Like your arm could be falling off. You're like, no, I feel good. I'm ready to fight, and it's all just to keep you in a positive mental space. So we didn't really talk about the fact that Alex wasn't going to be there. Like, I was really trying to tell myself, like, it's all good. I wouldn't be able to hear him anyway. I'm just going to let my body go on autopilot. It's not going to make a difference. But it does. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, because I just wonder if DC knew that, he would have never said that.
Yeah.
I would like to think that.
I would hope so, But if DC had just observed with his eyes, he could have seen that there were only 3 people in that corner that night and not 4.
Well, I mean, he's already been called out by Dominic Cruz about the lack of homework.
Oh, no way. Oh, that's right. I do remember that. Yeah, well, this is the thing. Like, we all have to grow. I have to grow as a fighter, and DC has to grow as a commentator because his comments that night were really uncalled for. And even a week later, he made some tweet that was like a passive-aggressive jab at Joe. It's really bizarre. Like, I'm like, DC, you're like the double champ. You're like... you're the EA fucking dude that decides the ratings. You're everybody's favorite commentator. You have things to do besides like tweet passive aggressive stuff about my husband's cornering, It was after Aspen Ladd's husband had cornered and there was all that controversy about whether or not he was good or not. So DC tweeted like, well, I would rather see that than some of the other cornering we've seen lately. And I'm like, that's obviously about me and Joe, but whatever, DC. Like, this actually, I heard this from JoJo Calderwood. She said it to Ariel Helwani, and it's one thing that I really agree with. So there you go, JoJo. There's a little credit for you. She said that if it doesn't fly at home, it's not going to fly in the cage. And I really liked that because it's like Joe treats me with respect all the time, which is why I fucking married him. He's a good man all the time. There's not some like hidden asshole personality that he brings out whenever he feels like he needs to. It's not like he can be like, oh, Lauren needs a real kick in the ass. I'm going to be a dick until she does whatever she needs to be doing. Like, Joe's good to me all the time, and that doesn't change. That's not an act. He doesn't put it on for the media. It's not something that changes when he gets stressed, and it didn't change in that title fight, which I love. I love that my husband is good to me. Even in the highest stress situations, he would never like talk to me like I was less than. He would never yell at me. He would never be like, you need to fucking do something different. Like, get in there. If I need somebody like that in my corner, it's definitely not going to be my husband, because if it doesn't fly at home, it's not going to fly in the cage. And I guarantee you that if Joe had talked to me like that night, I would have been more confused and brokenhearted than anything else. Like, to hear my husband talk to me that way and to think that he would need to, like, I just can't imagine something like a dynamic like that between Joe and I. So anyway, that's my 2 cents about it, is that Joe's good to me all the time. I'm glad that he's good to me all the time. And I don't ever want my husband to be the guy that turns into an asshole because the situation is high stress. We'll leave that to somebody else. And if DC ever corners his wife in a world championship anything, he can keep that in mind.
I'm sitting here that's very well said, and taking notes.
I'm like, yeah, said, point blank, period.
Yes, yeah. And as she prepares for her swimming journey, I know what I'm good at, I know what I suck at, and I know my role.
I hope you took some mental notes.
Yes, I would never try to be the guy I'm not, especially with that in the water. Yeah. I know what my role is, and hearing this from you too, it reinforces where I stay. I stay in my lane.
Hired me a coach.
Hired her a coach.
That's
awesome. Because,
Yes.
And actually, fun fact too, Lauren and I have swam together.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and you tried to teach me how to do the kick turn.
Girl, you're good.
I can swim in a straight line. Like Chael Sonnen said this. He was like, I could beat everybody in the swimming pool from one end to the other. But the turns, I don't do the turns. So it just has to be like awesome. Half a lap, I said, yeah, Chael, I could get on board with that. So, yeah, I definitely swim a lot in camps, and you guys can come out. Oh, yeah, we should swim in Houston then. When you guys come back, let's swim.
Yeah, we'll do it.
100%. Well, we really, really appreciate you coming on the podcast. We appreciate how sincere, how open you are, and everything like that. And we love talking to you over the years. And we're not going to stop. I mean, we support fighters, everybody wins, everybody loses.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And the comeback is going to be way bigger than the setback. I'm pumped. So I'm going to, my new goal is to get to the title again and get there with all finishes. So let's do it.
All going down against the Cupcake in May.
That's right. We're going to squash the Cupcake.
Episode 94. We are out.